Rarely do we find men who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. Often the oppressor goes along unaware of the evil involved in his oppression so long as the oppressed accepts it. Power is the ability to achieve purpose. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Whatever your life's work is, do it well. A man should do his job so well that the living, the dead, and the unborn could do it no better. We stand in life at midnight. We are always at the threshold of a new dawn. A man dies when he refuses to stand up for that which is right. For years, I labored with the idea of reforming the existing institutions in the South. A little change here, a little change there. Now I feel quite differently. I think you have got to have a reconstruction of the entire system, a revolution of values. An individual who breaks a law that conscience tells him is unjust, and who willingly accepts the penalty of imprisonment in order to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice, is in reality expressing the highest respect for the law. Man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. The most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason, but with no morals. The curse of poverty has no justification in our age. A true revolution of values will see that the Western arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them is not just. Any nation or government that deprives an individual of freedom is in that moment committing an act of moral and spiritual murder. Any individual who is not concerned about his freedom commits an act of moral and spiritual suicide. Don't let anybody take your manhood. I still have a dream today that one day war will come to an end, that men will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, that nations will no longer rise up against nations, neither will they study war anymore. If you cannot be a sun, be a star, for it isn't by size that you win or fail. Be the best of whatever you are. We must face the appalling fact that we have been betrayed by both the Democratic and Republican parties. Law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and when they fail in this purpose they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. Nonviolence is absolute commitment to the way of love. Love is not emotional bash. It is not empty sentimentalism. It is the active outpouring of one's whole being into the being of another. Life isn't worth living until you have found something worth dying for. Every nation must now develop an overriding loyalty to mankind as a whole in order to preserve the best in their individual societies. We must learn that to expect God to do everything while we do nothing is not faith but superstition. Racial segregation must be seen for what it is, and that is an evil system, a new form of slavery covered up with certain niceties of complexity. A social movement that only moves people is merely a revolt. A movement that changes both people and institutions is a revolution. One of these days I am going to put my body where my mind is. The difference between a dreamer and a visionary is that a dreamer has his eyes closed and a visionary has his eyes open. When I took up the cross, I recognized its meaning. The cross is something that you bear, and ultimately, that you die on. I have condemned any organizer of war, regardless of his rank or nationality. Cowardice is submissive surrender to circumstances. Another way that you love your enemy is this: when the opportunity presents itself for you to defeat your enemy, that is the time which you must not do it. Courage faces fear and thereby masters it. We must have the faith that things will work out somehow, that God will make a way for us when there seems no way. Whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they are going somewhere, because a man cannot ride your back unless it is bent. Nonviolent, direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has consistently refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. Whatever your life's work is, do it well. Jazz speaks for life. The blues tell the story of life's difficulties, and if you think for a moment, you will realize that they take the hardest realities of life and put them into music, only to come out with some new hope or sense of triumph. Without God, all of our efforts turn to ashes and our sunrise into the darkest of nights. If we are to go forward, we must go back and rediscover those precious values that all reality hinges on moral foundations and that all reality has spiritual control. Not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service. Hate destroys the very structure of the personality of the hater. Be true to what you said on paper. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. One day we will learn that the heart can never be totally right if the head is totally wrong. Only through the bringing together of head and heart intelligence and goodness shall man rise to a fulfillment of his true nature. Vanity asks, is it popular? Politics ask, will it work? But conscience and morality ask, is it right? 10,000 fools proclaim themselves into obscurity, while one wise man forgets himself into immortality. It is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of high maturity, to rise to the level of self-criticism. Jazz speaks for life. This is triumphant music. The soft-minded man always fears change. He feels security in the status quo, and he has an almost morbid fear of the new. For him, the greatest pain is the pain of a new idea. It is hardly a moral act to encourage others patiently to accept injustice which he himself does not endure. I agree with Dante that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in a period of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. You have very little morally persuasive power with people who can feel your underlying contempt. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.